Mr. Job. Just to take you back to the IPP agreement so that we understand. Now, Mr. Conte has said here that the energy charge, not only the capacity charge, but the energy charge was too high compared to what obtains usually in contracts of this nature. And we have exhibits SC85B, which is a sample of an invoice from Global Trading Group in respect of the energy charge. And I'll give it to you whilst I give you an opportunity to, if you want, respond to what Mr. Conte had to say. According to his evidence, because of the fact that the energy charge is based on variables as to spare parts and fuel, the average invoice was about 20 cents per kilowatt hour. And according to him, that was way too high, that the average normally for new generators, not used generators as in this case, what would expect maybe between 14%, around 14%. 14 cents per kilowatt hour. What do you say to that?
Council, with all due respect to Mr. Conte, the energy charge in the contract, these are standard formulas that apply irrespective of whether it is a new generator or an old second-hand generator. Maybe he has his reference, but what I can say is at the time the power purchase agreement was negotiated, it was negotiated by people who had who were of impeccable character and who, have experience in dealing with IPP.
Well, that may well be so, but you have said that you really did not have a free hand. You had been put under constraints. You had 3 days to negotiate, and you tried your best. Yes. My question is really, your focus was on the capacity charge. Now, he says the energy charge was high because it's a second-hand generator, and one of the variables is spare parts, and of course fuel, and it's obvious from that invoice that one of the variables is spare parts, and the older we all, I suppose it's logical, one can take notice of the fact that when any machine is old, it tends to use more spares. And of course, if it's old also, it has other implications as to fuel and oil. So I just want your reaction to the maybe the technical aspects of what he had said, that the energy charge is high, considering also the price at which NAWEC was actually selling energy to the public, that there was no margin at all left for NAWEC to make any profit off this IPP.
Okay. Yeah, in respect of the technical issues that he said, they are, valid. Because, yardsticks or benchmark are used based on not only new, but based on different generators, based on different technology, based on different age of generators. So, technically, because the generators were used, therefore in terms of fuel consumption, in terms of maintenance, in terms of, as I said, the specific fuel consumption variable, it was bound to be high. from an operational point of view, I agree with him. But using a blanket yardstick as a measure, that's something else. Maybe the key experts, whose experience are much more than mine in this area, can give more advice on that. But also, what I want to say is, certainly, that's why in all IPPs have indexations, because the price of energy, it depends on those inputs, fuel and others. So therefore, and if our tariff, at the time, our tariff was fixed. And that's why in the letter that we sent to the Office of the President, we stated that our tariff needs to be indexed in a similar manner as the IPP, so that now it will be in a position to generate revenue over and above the tariff, and then to be able to pay for the IPP and also sustain itself.
In terms of the capacity charge, which is translates according to the invoices NAWEC has given us, after 6 months it translated to a fixed charge of $721,600. Now this capacity charge, well, this $721,000, this fixed rate, applied from 2007, and you were not there at the time, but it also persisted through the period you came back in 2009 up to 2010 when you left, the $721,600 fixed rate.
Yes.
So my question, you have in your evidence referred to the production capacity of 63,812.
Yeah.
Megawatt hours, is it? Megawatt hours?
Yeah, megawatt
per annum.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, did you at any time during the period you were there put in any kind of monitoring to make sure that, or did it exist even if you didn't put it, to make sure that we were actually, GTG was actually providing the capacity that it said it was providing, or the capacity that was specified under the contract, which is 163,812. How come it's flat, 721,600 from 2007 until at least for all the period that capacity was actually invoiced, the capacity charge was invoiced?
Yes. Council, by the time I got back in December 2009, the capacity charge was already stopped.
It was stopped?
Yes. The former president gave directive, the Office of the President gave directive for NAWEC to stop paying the capacity charge.
But you were receiving invoices?
Yeah, but they can invoice, but NAWEC did not pay, as far as I know. When I came back. When the Office of the President gave the directive, or the Secretary General communicated directives for the capacity charge to be stopped.
From what we understand from other witnesses was that it was suspended, not stopped, and invoices were coming and they were being retained by NAWEC. Yeah. And eventually this fed into the bond. When the bond was settled, you were Minister of Trade, I believe.
Yeah.
Eventually this continuing invoicing, fed into the bond and made a difference of about 10.9 million.
Yeah, but then... So,
did you engage GTG regarding the invoicing of NAWEC during the period? Was there any engagement at all with GTG to let them know that NAWEC had no intentions of paying this capacity charge ever it had been stopped? We just need to understand why, if the President said stop, invoices kept on coming, and eventually the government had to pay about over 10-point-something million United States dollars.
As I said, it was when you have an executive directive coming from the office of the president, which, NAWEC at the time, as I said, before I even came back in December 2009, it's clear, and until that directive was to change, you don't defy directives. You at the time comply with the directive, and that means that you don't pay. You stop paying. That is what it meant. So as far as I know, during the time I was there was no payment of the capacity charge. Now, in terms of the minimum annual, when I came back in December, and then it has to take a year for one to be able to, compound the total amount of power that was produced for the year to be able to apply that the provision in the contract that is 5-point-something. But in between, because Baba Fatijo, the current MD, was then the power supply director. I had come back, and then we started engaging GEG, through correspondence, that we have observed that some of their generators were out of stream, and therefore out of stream. They were not online. They were not operational. They were not operational, and that the capacity charge, which was being invoice, even though it was not paid, was not supposed to be invoiced, because it is always important that what is available, they report on what is available, and so that the maintenance requirements and everything is provided for, so that NAWEC knows how to schedule its own maintenance. So Mr. Fadijo, at the time, I directed him with Mr. Ndu, when I came back the second time, to write to GEG to make sure that when a generator is out of line or is not operational, they provide the necessary reporting requirement as provided in the contract. So, but during that period, it is rather unfortunate that if there was a directive and subsequently this amount that you were stating was included in the bond, then that's something else, which should, in my view, should not have happened.
So what did you understand by the directive? Because we are getting, different interpretations from the witnesses.
Yes.
When the president said, do not stop paying capacity charge, what did you understand? Was it your understanding that it was supposed to be a permanent stoppage of the capacity charge, or was it a temporary reprieve granted to NAWEC?
I want to, my interpretation was that total stop, because by the time, in 2009, GEG, in terms of capacity, have invoiced and recouped almost about 20-something million US dollars from NAWEC, for the 2006 to 2009, in terms of the capacity charge. As I said, there was a tabulation which was done by the finance director for me sometime in December, given the situation as of 31st December 2009, where the total capacity charge which was paid up to December was 27,177,162.33 capacity charge.
You're reading from a document?
Yeah, that's my personal document.
Okay, we would like you to share it. What is that document?
The document is is the financial situation of NAWEC as of 31st of December 2009. That is the time when I came back.
Okay, prepared by you said?
Prepared by the then finance director, Alaji Jano.
All right.
Together with letters that were draft letters that were eventually signed, because at the time Mr. Fatajo and Mr. Nuru were in Kotu Power Station and we were in the head office so when we're drafting letter, it will be done through emails. They will send email, and then once it's okay by me, then they will sign and dispatch. So I have copies also of letters written by Mr. Fatajo at different times, Mr. Lu, to GEG, and also I have a letter written by then the finance director to the Ministry of Energy, stating certain key issues about NAWEC and some of the, problems that were, surfacing at the time when I came back.
Okay, that would be useful. I think I will receive those documents from you. Right.
Yes, with pleasure.
So you are saying not only was the capacity charge supposed to stop, but even the invoices that were received afterwards were not, I'm trying to use my words carefully, not quite proper, because the generating capacity of GEG was insufficient according to the contract. Is that what you're saying? To support the invoices, the flat invoice of $721,000 United States dollars.
Yeah, that's the capacity charge. There was no, because there was the directive, because there was, I believe, before I came back, there must have been different reasons or different discussions, which there must be something that led to the office of the president, the ex-president giving directive for it to be stopped.
Yes. Why did he give those directives?
I don't know, but I want to believe, and here is also speculation, because there were too much talk that these guys have made too much money on the capacity charge. Even though I was not in, I was outside, and that so these were the talk on the grapevine. People were talking, so maybe the message got to him, and maybe he was in. Okay. He was not in good terms, and decided to give the directive for this is pure speculation.
Okay, now, since you negotiated that contract and the generators, according to you and according to all the evidence we have received, were used generators, was there an indication of the value of the generators?
No, that's why I'm saying that from the onset, when we developed the guidelines, I made it clear here that any potential IPP need to submit a financing model. That is, total disclosure, open financial, how much your generators are going to cost, supported by supporting documents, so that we know, because that is where you can realistically determine the capacity charge.
So you did not have the value of the
that's what I'm saying. So the guidelines stated that the technical proposal, the commercial proposal, and the power purchase agreement. So what was submitted to us at the time was just the power purchase agreement together with some technical details which was an annex. So the financial was not there.
So in negotiating for about 25, did you say 25, in your letter to the Secretary General,
yes.
In the minutes of the meeting,
yes.
you were negotiating $25 per kilowatt. That's what you wanted of demonstrated capacity, and GEG held out for 32.8.
Yes.
What was the basis of your asking for $25 per kilowatt?
I think earlier on in my statement, I did explain that to the best of our ability, based on experience and yardstick, industry standard, we did analysis and said for the generators, the second-gen generators, anywhere between 15 to 20. The best case scenario. The worst case scenario.
15 to 20.
Yeah, 15 to 20 US dollars per kilowatt. Okay. And we say the worst case scenario, if these guys don't want to come down, the worst case scenario to enable NAWEC to at least break even was 25 US dollars.
Can this be approximated to the value you put on the generators?
I mean, in terms of capacity,
yes.
Yes, the finance director at the time, Mr. Baba Jajusi, who was part of the negotiation team and part of management, did some analysis, and we came to those conclusions.
I ask you this question, if you can clarify it, because again, the testimony we have here is that as a rule of thumb, generators are priced at about $1 million per kilowatt, is it per megawatt? And using that standard, those generators ought not to have been worth more than a certain price, so that that value or that price can be amortized over 5 years, or over the years that was agreed by the parties. So we just need to understand, what value would you have put on those generators had you had a free hand to negotiate? As it is, let me just tell you, as it is, NAWEC paid 41 million United States dollars as capacity charge in total, about 41 million. Yes. What value would you have put on those generators?
On those generators?
Yes.
This is a total guesstimate, because I'm not
asking you to guess.
Yeah, because
you're an engineer and you are the managing director of NAWEC.
Yeah, but to be frank, Council, you're asking me, there are certain things that you need to know about the age of the generators, etc., which I did not know at the time. That's why I'm saying that they were used generators. But I believe, as I stated here, that the capacity charge was too high, and that what they were charging, the best, for example, for us, under normal circumstances, would have been something like 15 US dollars per kilowatt hour, maximum 20, frankly speaking.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
let me have your documents. There's one more question, well, not one more. I'd just like to take you back to the heavy fuel contracts and the tanks at half-die. Now, because you were managing director for 2 terms, now when you were leaving, as you said, the tanks were supposed to be built, and there was a markup of 3% to cater for these tanks. This seemed to have been translated to about $2 million on the contract that was signed for the tanks. Now, when you came back in 2009, there was a different contract. You already had engaged GEG or Global Trading Group, and they had admitted that they did not build the tanks, and they were offering compensation, which was not resolved by the time you left, as at the time you left. Now, when you came back and you found this new contract signed by Mr. Jallo for still a markup of 17%, I mean, did you do anything about it? Because you were there for a little under 1 year.
Yes.
But they were still charging 17% for heavy fuel that was being supplied.
I found
and let me just add, and there were still no tanks at half-die. There were still no tanks at half-die.
Yes.
Yet the contract was still charging 17% as a markup.
Mr. MD Jallo was not around he did not give a handing over notes, he did not explain, anything because he was not here. When I took over in 2009, and the first thing about the contract that struck me was the reciter, because when you look at the first page, it was making reference to a contract signed on this day 2002, and then the contract was signed. If it wasn't for the date that the finance director put on the signature page, it would have been difficult to know exactly when the contract was signed. So, that was one thing that struck me. And I didn't understand why, because he was not here to explain. And the people that were there, could not give me the satisfactory explanation. I did ask, and I wonder why the 17% was still maintained. But as in the contract, they stated that they were going to provide free storage at Mandinari and also transportation from Mandinari to Kotu Tanks. That is what the contract states. But whether that was sufficient, that was on what basis? Because I didn't see any minutes of meeting. I didn't also see any, analysis. I just saw the contract. But I believe that the fact that we initiated a review and wrote to GTG sometime in 2006, I would have expected that and these were things in file, that the then managing director, Mr. Jallo, who took over, before signing a new contract, would make reference to those issues. Because this was something that was known even at the power station, but Mr. Baba Fat Jajisi, who was then the finance director, left for a job in Benin, so Mr. Jallo took over. But I think that in file, he should have made reference to these things. But maintaining the 17% for me was not explained.
I hear what you're saying. Mr. Jallo has given his own version. Of course, since you were arrested, you didn't have an opportunity to hand over to him either. So I don't know the circumstances. I don't believe you have the circumstances under which you then took over again from him. But my question still is this, that you were aware certainly of the background when you took over this contract. Was anything done about it at any time in relation to the 17% during the period that you took, when you came back? Did you engage with GT Global Trading? No. You just left matters to lie?
Because what happened is, at the time when I came back, I found a lot of contracts, the Bandes agreement, I found the Mulligan, lease sale agreement for a suction machine. I found generator number 5 and number 6 agreement between. And I started looking into these things, to try to understand, what actually were, because all of these things were signed when I left, and there wasn't much explanation. And I think I started, and I want to believe that maybe I started roughing people some feathers again and being a thorn in people's flesh. And the next thing, before I know, I was removed and Mr. Jallo was brought back.
Mr. Job, as a matter of practice, when you receive contracts in NAWEC, was it the responsibility of the managing director to look at it end to end and decide it was okay, or you had help from your legal. What happened? Because if you had like so many contracts, it would be an onerous task on you as the MD to worry about it. Also, the fact that you come from an engineering background, was it proper for you to worry about the finance and the legal aspects of those contracts?
Of course, I was ultimately the responsibility for the management of the now it rests on me, as the managing director, even though I'm a...
Yes, but with the full support of a management team.
Yes, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
Of course, perfectly, because my approach to management was I managed by, consultation and through committees. Everything, you set up a committee, comprising of competent professionals to look at it and provide the necessary, guidance and advice to move forward.
In this case, you benefited from legal advice in terms of the...
Yes, most of these, which ones?
The contracts you are mentioning.
But those ones are contracts that, was there that were already signed, and loan agreements that were already signed, not by me. But,
yes, but your predecessors, they practice the same procedures.
My predecessor?
Yeah. Do you know from institutional practice that it was the same thing? Consultative, participative management? You can't vouch for them.
I couldn't say that. I can't. But I don't know.
Because we asked the same question, in terms of negotiation, who protects NAWEC's interests? And the answer was not very clear. Was it for the MD? Or was it for the finance director? Or was it a whole team of management to negotiate?
It's a team of management. But ultimately the responsibility, if something goes wrong, is not the management, it's the managing director that is kicked out. Okay. So, but obviously, in strategically, you have experts in competency, finance, legal, technical, commercial. So you involve everybody. But then, ultimately, the responsibility rests on the MD. Whether things go right or it goes wrong.
The ultimate responsibility.
Yes, because, for example, let me give you a typical example. When on the 25th of August 2006, when there was a total blackout, and I was driving from Kedaba Avenue going to my house, the power goes off. I was not at the power station. I had nothing to do with it. This was the first time in the history of the Gambia we had 2 power stations. Okay? And this was the first time we're energizing the transmission line that I said was constructed sometime in 2003 or 2002 under the RMT project. Then the light went off. I received a call from the president asking me what was the cause of the blackout. I explained to him technically that, there must have been a teething problem, that I was on my way and I had called the power supply director to go to the power station to talk to the system controllers to know exactly what happened and what caused the blackout. Then he said, okay, fine. Then I went to the power station. I found the then CDS Langtom Rongtama, found Usman Songo, who was the IGP, found Harisambu, who was the director of NIA, found State Guard Commander Serin Murunjai there at the power station. Whilst I was talking to the system controller, oddly the CDS came and approached me and said, the CDS would like to talk to you. I said, okay, no problem. I went to him, he asked me, why did the power go off? I explained the possible reason and told him that I was about to talk to the system controller to know exactly what has happened. The next thing is, he took a phone, spoke to the guys, spoke to somebody. The next thing I was arrested and dumped inside mile 2 in 2:30 in the morning. And the next Tuesday, kept incommunicado for 7 days, taken to the Banjul Magistrate Court, charged with economic crime, remanded at the mile 2 prison for 14 days at the maximum security wing. Then granted bail, re-arrested on 2-3 occasions, detained at the NIA, asked to confess for things that I did nothing, and I said I'm not going to confess for anything.
But this is why we find it hard that you are taking ownership as the managing director in light of all this executive influence. And from what we hear, you didn't even have legs to negotiate on. Was it really a negotiation, or you just had to accept?
But I explained to you clearly, Commissioner, that from the onset, it's not right, because it should not have gone that way in the first place. I made it very, very clear, because when we got the proposal and I wrote back to say that this proposal did not comply with the guidelines that we were given 3 days to negotiate, or heads will roll. So the negotiations, hands were tied behind our back, and we were asked to fight. And I'm confirming what you are saying.
That's fine, thank you.
Yes.
Can I have the documents that you referred to? All the documents that you referred to in your testimony, please. This document, National Water and NAWEC Financial Situation of NAWEC as of 31st December 2009. It's not signed. It was, you said, prepared by your finance director, Alaji Jalo. All right. Where is he now? Okay. He's no longer with NAWEC.
He's working somewhere as an international appointment.
The letters also that you provide are not signed, they're yes, drafts.
But that's what
I just want to understand the circumstances.
Yeah, that's why I explained that, we, Mr. Fatajo, Mr. Ndu, where these letters, these people were based in Kotu Power Station. I was based in the head office. So when we are drafting a letter, they will draft, send the letter to me to review, and then when I give okay, then they will sign. So if the references are there, the reference of the file, so the original and the signed copy, if you use that and go to NAWEC, they should be able to find the signed copies.
All right. Because they are unsigned, I will not be able to apply to have them admitted, but I will be able to use them to try to track the signed copies.
Yes.
But there is one letter which is signed by Alaji Jalo, and it's dated 7 July 2010, improving the finances of NAWEC.
Yeah.
I'd also like you to...
Okay, go ahead.
You wanted to say something?
No.
I'd like you to also confirm that you made these two statements, and I'll apply to have them admitted, and your letter of appointment as managing director and connected documents.
Yes.
Please kindly sign, since this is a report, financial situation of NAWEC, can you endorse it today's date?
As I said, in here, Annex Annex 5, there's a tabulation of all the invoices that were received from GEG, together with the kilowatt hour and the corresponding US dollars that was paid. So it's in Annex 6.
All right. Just endorse it and date it today. And confirm that those are your statements?
Yes, I have.
Yes. All right. And give me back the documents. Thank you. Can you collect the documents, please?
I also have in my possession a report that was prepared by a team of NAWEC staff who in 2006 were asked to go to the US and to a company that was supplying Caterpillar generators. These were standalone high-speed Caterpillar generators. Because the reason me saying this is important, because when I was arrested and taken to the police headquarters to face an investigation team at the police headquarters, this was, I think, on the 27th or 28th of August. This is one of the things that they raised in that investigation. They asked me and Mr. Bahum, why is it that the two generators that were given to NAWEC by the president were not installed, and that we were sabotaging, the president and his Alexis agenda. And we explained clearly that, when these generators, when we were informed, I can't fully remember who did inform us as NAWEC at the time, but that we had to establish a team to go to the US and meet with one Gambian called Sibiter Jaro. Sibiter Jaro. I think he lives in Atlanta.
Can you spell the first name?
I don't know.
Sibiter.
Sibiter. That's his name. He's a Gambian, live here, and he frequented here. Okay, and so Tijan went. So they went and said that to inspect Caterpillar generators, 5 of them. So Tijan led a team which comprised of himself, Bakari Kante, Kabiru Jaju, Momodu Aliuba, Mampenda Tunkara, who was a graduate from GTTI, and Raymond Ayo Davis, a graduate from GTTI, that they go and inspect these generators because these generators were intended for NOEC. So they went and didn't see the generators because by the time they arrived, the generators they said were sick. And then they were taken to, a company, which is an agent of Caterpillar that produces intelligent switchgear. They came back. They were, what the mission, the objective of the mission and what they found were not the same. So they came back and wrote a report. When they wrote the report, this was in February 2006, then I submitted the report to the then Secretary General, communicating what they found. So we didn't hear anything because it was getting close to the AU summit. Then we wrote letters again, and then no response. Then, at one time in February, before the AU summit, then one officer, Bakari Kamara, who was an aide to the president, came and said that the generators are here. But he was asked to come so that we can transport the generators. So he said the 2 generators were meant for NOEC, and the other, one State House and the other 2 in Kanilai. How it was financed, we don't know. But then it's important to make, so when they bought these generators are called standalone generators. It's like, you cannot synchronize it. Yes, and also there were light fuel generators. You cannot synchronize it with the heavy fuel generators in Kotu. There was no provision. And we made mention of all those things in the report. But we were seen, because I have to explain that at one time, let me just give a small anecdote so that you can understand where I'm going to land. That when in 1999, towards the end, NOEC was a formidable institution comprising of committed, dedicated people under the leadership of then Bachibalde. And then suddenly, around 1999, 98, 99, then they started politicizing the institution, and they wanted certain things done, and the guys, the then leadership under Bachi did not budge. Then the tsunami landed in NOEC, and then 3 of them, Mr. Bachi Balde, Charles Potin, and Alaji Joe, were summarily dismissed from NOEC. Then you then had people who were politically correct, connected and had access to political friends and, security, you know, and then you had people who were focused and committed on the job. Now, when this thing came, you know, we knew internally that some of the people in the middle and senior management in NAWEC felt that, you know, these experts were just being difficult. This is something straightforward. So you never know, maybe some of this information, you know, was what translated that, you know, we are sabotaging. So now we tried every effort to install these generators and made contacts, you know, with other institutions to supply transformers. So, and I think they got this message got to the man, to the ex-president, that we refuse to install these generators that he has bought, and they were lying in Kutu. So when we were arrested, this was one of the things. So it's important, you know, because I stand here and swear by the Holy Quran to say the truth and nothing but the truth. And that is why I'm here to say that. So here is the report.
Thank you very much. There's just a matter I'm curious about. Excuse me for using that word. After that trauma, why did you come back? Why did you go back in 2009? Can you collect those documents?
I'm a Gambian, and I have every iota of right to work for this country. If you see my letter, which I wrote when I was appointed, and I replied to the Secretary General in my letter of September 28, 2004.
Sorry, in which letter? When you accepted your appointment?
Yes. When I accepted
this was in 2004.
2004.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a Gambian, and I have every right to work for the Gambia. But at the time, you know, the ex-president was the appointing authority. Yes. The ex-president was the appointing authority. But I'm a co-owner of this country. And I believe that, you know, if I'm called to serve this country, somebody had to work. And I was trained, I was employed, I started my professional career in GUC, I was trained in GUC, and I worked in GUC all my life. So therefore, and I knew that I didn't do anything wrong.
So, but it was a collision course.
You say what?
It was a collision course.
But everybody
if you stood for your ideals,
yes,
and he was the appointing authority, and you accepted it with the full knowledge that he didn't uphold any governance standards, it was a collision course. So our question is why?
Commissioner, I don't agree or disagree. Go ahead. Yeah, but that's a position that you hold. But what happens is this: somebody, if there was no governance in this country and everybody left, then there will not be any, you know, we will all suffer in this country.
You took it to be part of the change.
Of course, I'm a change. I was not part of a change. I'm a change.
You are a change agent.
Yeah, I'm a change agent by myself.
What did you change about NAWEC governance?
What did I change about NAWEC governance?
In terms of influencing him as minister.
Yes, in terms of
influencing him as a minister, the contribution you made as a change agent. This is an inquiry. We want to know. We are not contesting your acceptance. We just want to know the thinking behind you going back after the trauma as a change agent.
Yes, because I may not have direct access to, because I didn't have direct access to the president, but at every time, and the letters will attest, at every time, you know,
we have not benefited from reading the letter. So any information you can give us will help us.
Okay, we'll tell you from the time, from way back in 2004 up to, you know, 2006 and even 2010 when I came back, at every time I have some correspondence, and we communicated as managing director of NAWEC through the Secretary General or through the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Energy. At all times, I was not afraid to state the facts and what would improve the energy sector. And here are some records from on the 18th of January 2006. It's just giving you some because I used to keep some of these documents.
In line with that, we ask here if there was any literature, any paper, any analysis that was prepared as an update to the Office of the President on the situation of NAWEC and why it wouldn't make profit.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's here. Because one of them is already submitted to council.
Okay. That will be,
yes.
Yes. We didn't have that.
Yeah, but these are my personal copies, and the reference is because what happened, Commissioner, is this: I kept records because I knew. I mean, as from now today, that these records will speak for itself. If it wasn't for these records, when we were arrested and kept at we would have been more traumatized because of the records. Because the records is this: if you see, when I write something, then as a managing director, and this carried on, is the guiding principle of my management strategy.
What's the title of that paper?
This is status operation on the provincial operations. This is present state of affairs of NAWEC. This is the current situation of the NAWEC distribution and transmission network. This is the financial situation of NAWEC, the negative impact on increasing fuel cost.
Okay. Any paper regarding your experience as managing director dealing with GEG or GTG?
Some of the correspondence.
Some of it refer to it.
Yes,
because the people who testified before you called it a disaster. We asked them to quantify the disaster in dollars or dollar terms. Did you do any such exercise? Or the exercise you did it make reference to your experience with GTG and GEG? And was there some dollar value attached to the disaster, as they called it?
I mean, the dollar value is, I mean, I did not do the quantification, but if you look at where it started, you know, for example, for the fuel, in terms of 14% and an addition of 3%. And then you quantify based on the amount of fuel that was supplied during the period. You know, that's a simple mathematical, arithmetical calculation.
MIS, in-house MIS can provide it.
Pardon?
In-house NAWEC MIS can provide it.
Of course.
Good.
Of course. I mean, I've just told you that in terms of the invoices for the GEG, there's a table in there that the then finance director, Mr. Jallo, prepared as an update, listing, you know, for each month from 2006 to 2009, how much for each month was invoiced and how much was paid.
Mr. Job, a lot of blame was put on the ex-president and Mr. Bazi in terms of ruining NAWEC. Those were the terms used.
Yeah.
What is the real problem with NAWEC? Those two individuals, were they a part of the problem or they were the core problem? Based on your knowledge.
You need to have guts. Who? Well, some of us needed to have guts.
NAWEC, I mean?
Yes, NAWEC.
Okay. So there was a problem with NAWEC?
Yes, some of us needed to have guts and be truthful. Although there was a problem, as you rightly stated, with the ex-president in his dealings with Bazi, which was, we were not privy to, but we knew, you know, we could not, but also some of us, you know, needed to, you know, to stand up, not fear of being arrested. Because when we were arrested, we were stating what was, to the best of our ability, what we could do.
Do you believe there was any potential financial mismanagement in terms of the Office of the President interfering with NAWEC operations vis-a-vis GTG and GEG? Was there any financial benefit that motivated them? You may not have evidence, but from what you gather, from your interaction.
Well, the evidence here before the commissioner is that, Mr. Bazi was a close associate of the president. That was not out of vacuum.
That was provided?
Yes, that's what...
I'm talking from your interaction and experience. Do you have anything to support that?
No.
Regarding NAWEC dealings?
No, I don't.
You don't have?
No, I don't.
Okay. And again, under your watch, do you believe there was theft of money, material, and electricity itself in NAWEC? At any point in time?
Yes, there were losses, theft, consumers stealing electricity. We set up the loss reduction program in NAWEC to try to identify, areas of loss and rectify it. And at the time, we had Moses Campbell, who was the head of it. And at some point, we then had the NIA, set up office in NAWEC.
To do what?
I'm coming.
Go ahead.
They set up office interfering with every aspect of NAWEC's operation. Commercial, technical, loss reduction. They had an office in the, and I vehemently fought against it and wrote on several occasions. It must be on record. I don't have copies, but wrote to the then Director General of NIA complaining and, for some of the activities of the then operative, one Omar Cham, who was there. He was an NIA operative. These people will extort money. They will go and, interfere and arrest staff at the power station. They will go and, arrest consumers who are suspected of illegal connection, go and take out their meters. And I used to, film. But nothing happened. And you can confirm, maybe even after I came back, in 2009, I had the same problem with the guy. Because he was one of the, orchestrators. In 2006, when I was arrested, to dig a hole for me. This Mr. Cham, Omar, NIA operative. He continued. When I came back, he came because it was an opportunity for him to just do whatever he wants. And ask everybody in NAWEC, they will try to fight and get him out of that place. And I think up to now, if you go, there is an NIA office in NAWEC.
One final question.
Yes.
Central government areas, yes, or local government, how much was that? Was it a big problem for NAWEC? Did government owe you a lot of money?
Yeah, yes, the government owed a lot of money, but the government will also claim that NAWEC owes a lot of money.
So you had a netting of...
Yeah, you have, at certain time, you had netting off. But NAWEC is owned by the government. Now, when UHC, was disbanded, and NAWEC is a company. It's not a public enterprise governed by Public Enterprise Act, like in ports in another. It's NAWEC is owned according to documents owned by the government, Social Security, Gambia, and ports.
So there should be some degree of autonomy.
Exactly.
In the way it operates.
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
It did not happen.
Was that not partly because some of your predecessors believed that NAWEC was owned by a government, and even if government needed money, they should give it to government as part of national development? That's not in line with your corporate governance practice.
Yeah,
but some of your predecessors condone it, or even successors. So it's probably NAWEC mentality.
No, but I wouldn't say NAWEC. That's a general blanket categorization. I would want to move away from it a little bit.
But as an individual, you said as an MD you had ultimate responsibility. So in terms of awareness and creating knowledge that will filter down to the staff, wasn't it also part of NAWEC MDs to educate the staff to know that yes, they're owners, but we're supposed to operate independently. We're not supposed to give them $500 million to spend anyhow they want in the name of national development.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the ultimate responsibility, those financial policies is dictated by government. I mean, on paper, you may state that we are probably autonomous and, but unless, there is more clarity, there is separation of authority and responsibilities, in the new dispensation, then something. But in the past, that was what was happening. But then you walk and try to do the best to your ability. Some of us did the best we could, others did their best.
But the executive sponsor, just like it was your responsibility in NAWEC, and you had ultimate responsibility, the executive sponsor here was the head of state. Yes. If you have a head of state who didn't uphold governance standards, why did you want to be led by him? We come back to the same question. Why did you come back? Why should you be led by an executive who did not uphold governance standards?
Was voted by Gambians in office. I mean, he was the head of state. What he was doing is for him to be responsible.
He was voted to uphold our governance standards. Did you not see he didn't uphold them?
Yeah,
or did you turn a blind eye?
No, but it affected everybody in this country.
Yeah, we are talking about yourself. Did you accept it because everybody else accepted it? Let's talk about you.
Me?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. You said you were a change agent and you accepted to be part of the change. So I'm saying it was clear to everybody, like you said, that this executive sponsor did not uphold governance standards. The minimum he could do is to uphold them.
Absolutely.
But he broke every rule he could.
Okay.
You were fully aware. So again, the question is, why did you accept? What was the motivation? It's still not clear. Why did you accept to be led by such a president?
Why did I accept to be led by such a president?
You could choose to decline his appointments.
No, but
you said you were a Gambian and you had the right to accept. In accepting, there are motivating factors. What were they?
No, what I'm saying is, for me, the president was the appointing authority, but he did not own the country. I'm a co-owner of this country. And my motivation, like everybody else, I'm a professional and I have to work. And in my work, I will try under different conditions to do the best I could. That is what I can honestly say, Commissioner.
If you can't beat them, join them, then beat them.
Your words, not mine.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted letters including a report dated 15 February 2006 from this witness to the Secretary General on the training of 6 NAWEC staff at Intelligence Switchgear Organization in US, and letters dated 2010, and a report on the financial situation of NAWEC as of 31st December 2009. Do you have any other report? Yeah. You refer to another report?
Also, this is some additional documents which I had in possession. So you can.
We have it. Social Security. This is Social Security.
Council, something just came up. Mr. Juk, would you know anything about Busta, Fajara Busta, and why GEG had some space there?
I know that,
please.
When I came back they were about to start the couturing project and other, projects. I think initially, they had this Lebanese guy, I think is Azad or Amar something, who was stationed there. But then I think after how they took over and part of go to Booster Station. Really, I don't know the details, but I know that property belongs to Nawek from GUC, because this was the Booster Station, and then you had the yard where materials were kept, and the other side where you had the pumping stations, and then you have the coal plant. So the entire area belongs to was a Nawek property, just like the then half-die.
Sorry, Mr. Guru, I had started applying to have certain documents admitted. Among the documents you have just given is a lease sales agreement between Nawek and Maligam and Nawek. Maligam International Trade Import and Export. Who is Maligam International Trade? Who did you deal with?
No, it's something, as I said. The reason I'm...
Who did you deal with as Maligam? Who did you deal with?
Who did I deal with?
Yes, on behalf of Maligam.
That's Sambaba.
That is?
Sambaba.
Sambaba.
The guy that signed the contract with then the MD, Mr. Jalo.
Okay, this was signed on the Okay, I will not apply to have this document admitted now. I'll send it to the investigators for investigation.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm applying, Mr. Chairman, to have admitted various reports prepared by this witness and submitted to the Secretary General Office of the President from 2006. And the documents I had previously mentioned, and two statements made by this witness dated 4 June 2018, his appointment letter and letters relating to his appointment letter exchanged with the Office of the President. One of the documents we have, which is the document signed by Mr. Balagay in relation to Social Security. So I'll give that back to you. You can take this one.
Okay.
It's part of Exhibit 97.
Yeah.
Witness statement of Mr. Abdullahi Job, witness number 198, dated 4th June 2018, respectively on heavy fuel contract and purchasing power agreement between NAWEC and GTG plus related correspondence admitted mark SC 104A. Status reports on NAWEC for the period for 18th June, is it January? Yes. 18th January 2006 to 7th July 2010, admitted in a bundle marked SC 104B.
Thank you. Mr. Job, just on one issue, the management agreement between the government, NAWEC, and Global Management Systems. When you came back in 2009, there was a management contract in place between Global Management Systems and NAWEC. Is that correct? Yes. Could you tell us your own take on the management system, and what was your relationship with Global Management System and the Muhammad Bazi Group as Managing Director?
Was almost dead, because most of the people, the task team leader, they had changed task team leader several, and I think the guy that I met, Walter Espinosa, that was his name. And I also met an Indian guy called Nicky, who was almost going out, and also Nabil Bazi, who was supposedly the project manager dealing with project as it has been explained here. So really, I didn't have much. They were there. I think, if I am right, the payments to the management services company, all right, were stopped, if my memory serves me right. Also, it was, I think, few months after that, Nabil was still there, but I think Mr. Walter also resigned and left. So it was only Mr. Nabil who was there. By the time he was coming in and out of NAWEC, because I guess he had other things to do. But he was stationed in NAWEC together with Mr. Walter Espinosa. I mean, I read the contract, but my view was that if you weed out all the people in NAWEC, then you create a justification to have a management contract. Because most of the people in NAWEC, in my view, were either during that period sidelined, relegated, or dismissed. So, for reasons, some we may know, some we may not know. But as he said, Commissioner Hussein said, governance issue.
Now, when you took over, the schedule to the management agreement said the management contractor, so the task force was to be responsible, task force was to be responsible for almost virtual everything, including controlling of order and purchase. So during the, so what happened when you took over? I mean, basically they were the ones managing the organization and responsible for procurement. During that period, how did it work? Were they procuring for NAWEC, or were you as managing director, did you have the usual powers vested in the managing director to run the organization? We would like to understand what happened during your work, so to speak.
When I came back, the activities of the Global Management System Management Account, Management Agreement was already...
Yes, you have said so, but was there any procurement?
No, not during, I would not entertain it, because I came back to NAWEC following the President asking the then Minister of Energy that he wanted me back in NAWEC, because all that they told him about me was not true. He found out. That's what he said to the then Minister of. I consulted my family, with uncles and relatives, and they said, you have to go back because of the fact that you're still in country, so it is not okay to stay and refuse not to go back. You understand? So when I came back with some impetus, to get things done. So I wasn't going to, relegate my responsibilities, to individuals like Walter or Mr. Bazi. So we've tried to the best of our ability in procurement, because at the time there were several procurements which were ongoing. That was the Kuturing rural water supply project, which was initiated sometime in 2004 by funding with ADB, and they were in the process of procurement. So we made sure that we followed the rules and guidelines that were established by the IDB, not, to the whims and caprices of Mr. Nabil, who was in charge of projects. Now, but prior to that, most of the contracts, were signed, and I heard from the briefing that I got when I came back was, from Mr. Fatajo, who was the then power supply director, and also the admin director, Mr. Ba, that it was, this was, total control. These people were controlling NAWEC, and this is not in the interest of the company.
You said the project was in procurement, rural water supply?
No, Kuturing rural water supply project. It was funded by the, the Islamic